The whips have agreed that the following matters will be considered next. Paragraph 10 of Executive Report number 2, the Battersea Support Centre. Paragraph 4 of Items for Decision, Report number 1, Shared Staffing with Richmond. Paragraph 7 of Report number 2, Voluntary Sector Grants. And Paragraph 7 of Report number 1, the Council Tax for 2015-16. I now call upon Councillor Govinda to move Report number 2 and Councillor Cook to move Paragraph 10 of that report.
Mr. Mayor, formally move.
Thank you. This paragraph is subject to a reference up amendment. So can Councillor Osborne, I believe, Councillor Osborne and Councillor Speck now move and second the amendment in their names, which is on page 97 of the Council agenda.
Can I move it formally, please, Mr. Mayor?
I'll second it formally.
Thank you, Councillor Speck. Okay. Would you kindly speak to the motion? Thank you.
Thank you. The Battersea Sports Centre is a well-used and well-loved centre. It's used by a whole variety of people of all ages and all abilities. And it's just been mentioned, the Equalities Impact Assessment shows that those most affected will be the disabled, the ethnic minority groups and those under 19. It's also in the ward with the most deprivation, the worst health statistics and the most obesity. The Battersea Sports Centre is also used by several schools, and one local primary uses it for all its Key Stage 2 PE. And the logistics of asking a school to take its pupils elsewhere has implications on timetabling, missing of other lessons and cost, and the governors did write to the OSC about their concerns. We're now told that the Sports Centre needs to close to provide a site to decant residents from the Winstanley York Road estates as part of the regeneration there. Now, the first we three local councillors knew of this was after Christmas, although we have attended numerous meetings and consultations over the last 2 years on the regeneration project with decant sites discussed, but the sports centre was never ever mentioned there, and we were never consulted about the impact on the ward that this would have. Now, I'm very pleased to see that in the latest statements that we will have the new leisure facilities in the regeneration, which includes a swimming pool on that site. But it will be years before it's complete and ready for use. And residents will not have the wide range of facilities they have now during that time. I know that there are very different facilities mentioned, such as the proposed football pitch on Falcon Park and the new facilities at Keys House, but they do not cover the range needed. The football pitch will not be a full-size pitch, and the other sports facilities and activities will not be catered for. It has a whole wide range there. So, for instance, the volleyball, which has a special roof, and all sorts of other things that happen there. And I think that we've not taken that into account. Regeneration is not just about buildings and houses, which is what we seem to talk about most, but it is about people and communities. We need to strengthen communities, and we should have happy, active residents. And I'm really pleased to have been part of the work we've done on the regeneration on the Winstanley York Road estates. But we can't make one area of residents pay the price for the other area's regeneration, which is what is happening. The side where the sports centre is situated has no other community facilities. It is the area with few, if any, community groups and volunteers, including residents groups, and even the big local SWM group, which I'm one of the vice chairs, has found it an area a difficult area to engage with, other than through some of the activities and people in the sports centre. So we're taking that away. We want to see regeneration in all senses, better housing, better facilities and strong community, but not at the expense of residents in another part of the ward, which has no other facilities at all if it closes. In fact, what we really need to do is to work hard to get more community participation in that area, not less. If the Battersea Sports Centre closes, there will be a knock-on effect also, I think, or there could be, on crime in the area. It was even mentioned at the last Latchmere SNT meeting that although crime was down within the ward, that young people use the centre, and it was said both before and after hours, having kickabouts on the outside pitch and so on, but that if that was gone, there would be nowhere else for those people to go. It would be back to hanging around in the stairwells in the blocks in the Mayfield Road area and so on. And it is a long way to the other facilities being mentioned. I mean, to get to the park, it's 2 main roads and 2 housing estates you've got to get to the proposed football pitch. What we should be doing is doing our best for both sets of residents. And we shouldn't be getting rid of facilities, especially years before the new ones are available. And also with the regeneration, as already been said, there'll be actually several hundred more people living on those estates that need to be catered for. We've got hundreds of residents signed the petition to stop the closure. We had deputations, people at the OSC, and many people are going to be disadvantaged. I'd urge that the proposal to close the centre is stopped. Our officers look again at decant sites, and please support our amendment because the residents at that end of the ward really cherish and need that sports centre.
Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the first Conservative speaker in the debate on the Battersea Sports Centre, I want to make clear and explicit the links between the proposals for the Battersea Sports Centre and the first debate of this evening, which very clearly set out a determination, in the words of that first motion, to transform the lives and hopes of some of the most deprived communities in the borough. The regeneration of the Winstanley and York Road estates and the associated declaration by London's Mayor of a Battersea housing zone show that Conservatives in Wandsworth and in London deliver for all the people of our borough. The proposals relating to the sports centre are an integral element of the wider regeneration proposals. To start the regeneration of the estate, sites for new build homes do need to be identified in the local area to rehouse residents. The Council has made clear, as was said earlier this evening, its commitment to rehouse people as close as possible to their existing homes and, where possible, to only be involved in one move. Now, developing this site could mean some 90 such homes are provided. And the regeneration proposals, yes, are about far more than just housing. And in this instance, as my colleagues will explain later in the debate in more detail, include new sport and leisure facilities in the Your Garden area. So I really do ask the minority party to look at this bigger picture. Changes of this scale and nature are always going to be difficult and require political leadership. So I hope the whole council will be able to rise to that challenge. So far, I am rather doubtful, though, from Labour's approach, whether they will do. I personally find that quite disappointing, not that they will have any interest at all in my views, I fully accept that. But I think also increasing number of local residents are coming to that conclusion as well. However, I do just want to tackle sort of some of the irresponsible comments that have been made, leaving aside the risible comments from the Deputy Leader about the Labour Party about vanity projects. But Labour councillors and candidates have referred to the independent review by Neil Kingan and the events in Clapham Junction in August 2011. Now, that report rightly identified the prime cause of the disturbances and looting as criminal opportunism. And in fact, information reported earlier this year demonstrates that this was fueled by prolific offenders who've gone on to commit further serious crimes. And of course, many taking part in the Clapham Junction disturbances were from outside the area. So residents of Battersea who were appalled by the looting and trashing of over 100 local businesses, many built up over several years, are rather appalled as well by Labour's attempt to play politics with the Kingan report. In fact, it's quite shameful. Now, in comparison, the Council's Regeneration and Aspirations programme will help to build stronger and safer communities. As I've said, this is far more than just housing, far more than, in fact, housing and new sport and community facilities, vitally important as they are. But as the report from EFCROS later in the Council report shows, Family Recovery Project, Troubled Families, Work Match, Career Development Service, Quest, the Battersea Mentoring Project, Change Champions and Mental Health Mentors. That is all part of the aspiration programme. So returning again to from the wider context to the specifics of the sports centre proposals, when the party opposite gives only partial and misleading information, then of course current users become quite worried. For example, earlier this year, a Northcote resident contacted ward councillors in Northcote because he organises a sports group at that centre, and he'd been told, I presume by Labour, that the centre was closing. No information, of course, about regeneration programme or nearby facilities. Fortunately, he got in touch with his ward councillors. We met him, explained what was going on, and as a result, he's in discussion. As a result, he's in discussion with Keys House about using their facilities, and beyond that, he is now looking at the possibility of an outreach programme of providing sport facilities in the local estates. It is an 80-strong group which draws people from well outside the borough to its activities. Now, surely that is a very positive development when the true facts are properly explained to residents. So in conclusion, Mr. Mayor, while I would again urge the Labour Party to join the majority party in rising to the challenge of community leadership in regeneration and aspiration programmes, if they won't, then I'm very confident the Conservatives will, and I would therefore ask the Council to reject this amendment.
Councillor Efsom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm a Wandsworth girl, and I'm the second Queen of Queenstown, as I introduced to, thank you, I introduced everyone to Assembly Member Richard Tracy. I've lived in Wandsworth the majority of my life. I've seen Prince Charles come to the heliport to be taken to emergency from my bedroom window. I have seen a lot of changes. Some changes have been good. Getting rid of the concrete playground that used to be in Badrick Court. Developing Providence House as a strong youth club. But closing Battersea Sports Centre is a very bad decision. And it will affect the local residents, because I know those local residents. My late father used to have a garage by Newton Prep School. After living in Wandsworth for a long time, people like him and me have built long-term friendships and relationships through schools, work, and community involvement in the borough. This keeps the community vibrant and alive. Keys Youth Club, before it looked so good, it was an old-fashioned hall with a giant football ground that no one hardly used. Now that money has been put into the youth club, everybody is promoting it. It is growing and supporting the local community. A lot of people from Badrick Court, Fawcett Close, McDermott Close use Keys. A great example for a community venue can be. However, it is too far from the schools and some members in the borough. These people who live closer to Battersea Sports Centre deserve the same opportunities as exercise, meet and socialise together. Battersea Sports Centre is not just a centre to keep fit. It is the hub of local community, My mum belongs to the older group club in the Battersea Sports Centre. She does not live on an estate, but she gets excited going to the Battersea Sports Centre, seeing her friends. She doesn't only go there to exercise, but it's also to catch up with her friends. My mum is quite blessed because she has a family around her. However, older people in that group who live alone, who do not have friends, can bring loneliness, isolation, and lead to depression, or worse, might give up on life. I am not against building new, affordable, and social housing, but why? And again, but why? The sports centre, when there is other land you can build on. Close down the sports centre, and you close a community. 2 generations in my family still live in Battersea, love the community, friends and local amenities. Maybe the council sees this as undesirable and as a certain idea how they want the community in Battersea. You are trying to clear out a certain community in Battersea by hollowing out local services and facilities that many people depend on. Mentoring schemes will be lost. Jobs will be lost. We are supposed to be encouraging employment. Your borough is not our community. You are cutting out its heart. You flush out the community, it loses the soul.
Councillor Caddy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I found the decision that we took at the Community Services Committee to close the sports centre one of the most difficult that I've made since becoming a councillor. The 2 deputations to the committee were incredibly eloquent and persuasive. And what they said really brought home to me some of the things that Councillor Efton was saying, that the centre is more than just bricks and mortar. It's quite obviously a place which means a huge amount to the people who use it and who work there. It's a community hub, as well as somewhere where the seeds of really incredible sporting achievement have been sown. However, it is impossible to ignore the compelling arguments in favour of the proposals. We've heard about the bigger picture in terms of the regeneration plans for the area, which are obviously a fantastic opportunity. And we also know that the land is going to be used to build much needed housing, and that will help prevent families being moved more than once during the regeneration. And these are incredibly important considerations. Battersea Sports Centre is a valued community asset, but it's ageing, it costs us £100,000 a year to run, and there are really good reasons to use the site for housing. So under those circumstances, and in the face of those facts, I really wanted to understand what we were proposing to replace that community asset with. And I totally appreciate and get that you can't replace the history and the atmosphere, but what we can and will have are fantastic new facilities that will help inspire people to take up sport, to get involved in activities in their community, and be healthier and happier. And those facilities can be better than what was there before, attract more people and offer more choice of activity. So the good news, which we went to some lengths to confirm in our discussions at the Scrutiny Committee, is that there will be brand new provision, developed as part of the York Gardens Community and Leisure Facility, and this certainly will provide a community hub. However, again, we are also concerned about the situation immediately after closure. The York Gardens hub won't be opening for a few years, so where will users go in the meantime? Again, we have Keys House, St John Bosco, and the building of the new football pitches at Falcon Park. Keys House provides a brand new 4 badminton court sports hall, gym and dance studio, and has already opened. St John Bosco's facilities, with another 4 badminton court, and a floodlit multi-use games area will be opening in September before Battersea closes. However, this would leave a gap for an outdoor artificial pitch on which to play football. And we've heard that's really important and popular to young people. So that's why we won't be closing Battersea until a new pitch at Falcon Park, just a mile away, is open. There's also been some comment about the consultation process that was undertaken. A couple of points about this. Clearly, we needed to see the proposals before we could consult on them. So as soon as the committee paper with the proposals was available, user groups were invited to submit comments. The scrutiny committee reviewed those comments, and we also, as I mentioned, received 2 excellent deputations, clearly outlining why the centre should stay open. And I believe they made a very good case. And the decision wasn't made lightly by anyone on the committee, and certainly not through lack of information or responses from users, or from a lack of understanding of what the centre means to people. I really hope that the opposition can see that this is a sensible, albeit difficult decision, made crucially in the long-term interests of our residents. Because for me, the idea of the new, improved facilities in York Gardens at the heart of an exciting regeneration project, plus the extra facilities that will already be online when Battersea closes, provide a compelling and exciting vision of what we can have here in terms of leisure facilities. And our residents deserve that. So although it is a very difficult decision to close this much-loved centre, it's one I believe the Council is absolutely right to take, and I would urge you to oppose this amendment.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity to talk more about Battersea Sports Centre and to bring it to the attention of all the councillors here and for those in the gallery as well. I was really glad that this motion was brought up because we did have a very heated debate, and thank you, Councillor Caddy, for sharing some of that. And it was clearly a hard decision. We had some great representations from the local people. And for me, I understood a lot more through, I'm a member of that committee, through hearing about that. Because from the papers, it does seem like Battersea Sports Centre is an old and crumbling sports centre. It implied that it was ill-used, and it was about time that there were some new facilities put in place. And there were some new facilities mentioned, and that's the reason given for closing the sports centre, because there's the Keys House and John Bosco, and a new Falcon Park football pitch. However, there were some problems with that I found out when listening to their representations and also to doing my own research and talking to others. But first of all, it's not a crumbling and underused edifice at all. It's the fact that the amount that Wandsworth gives it is going down is a testament to its success. It's a really successful sports centre which has a very high usage rate and would really benefit from some more investment, not from being torn down. The second thing is not really just a sports centre. As you said, it's a very Councillor Caddy, it's a very much loved part of the community. It really should be called a community centre, and that part of it should be highlighted far more. And the third thing that seemed to be wrong about the papers we were given, there was no option that the decant had to happen in that space and nowhere else. If you were against this, you were against affordable housing, you were against social housing. There's no other way that Winstanley could possibly go ahead. And therefore, if you're against this, you're against the whole Winstanley regeneration, which of course we are absolutely not. This is not about opposing any part of that. It's about saying there should have been more options given to us. There was a plan A for the decant before this closing the sports centre ever came up. There was a plan A which was talked to with the local councillors for using, for example, car parks in a local road, which are very large and could have been used. That plan A should have been put to the committee. We should have looked at different options, not saying it's the Battersea Sports Centre or nothing. So we should be really proud of the sports centre, and I'm glad to be able to share some of the things of pride about this. If this was in my ward, I would be fighting tooth and nail for this, as would we all, I think. Darius Knight, a Team GB table tennis player, came from the sports centre. Craig Eastman, a professional footballer who played for Arsenal, came from that sports centre. I could go on. And also the amount of top-class basketball that's played there with 3,000 young people going to watch that basketball over the year, should be talked about far more. This is not a sports centre which is underused and failing. It's a really top-class sports centre, meeting local needs for people of all ages, building community, the kind of thing that takes years and years and years to happen. So I think there's just been a lack of value placed on the sports centre relative to other places where that decant could happen. And I think that, as Councillor Caddy said, understanding what the centre means to people should lead to a rethink of this strategy and going back to look at where else the decant could happen. Going back and saying, actually, it's too important to that community to pull down the sports centre. Do we really want the Winstanley regeneration to be started off with the sports centre being pulled down in front of everyone's eyes there? No, we clearly don't. This really needs looking at again. And the alternatives. So we've been told that Keys House and John Bosco are good alternatives, viable alternatives. It's a bit like taking a school and splitting it up and telling the biology class to go over to one building somewhere else, the geography class to go somewhere else, and to expect the whole school to continue as a community building. In fact, this is a community club. It cannot be parcelled out to different places, which in fact don't meet the need. They're not fit for purpose for being viable alternatives. Keys House is very nearly, it's very, very well used. It's a good facility, but it's really well used already. It won't take all the users from Battersea Sports Centre. And John Bosco is actually a school. It's used as a school all the time. So how can it be an alternative to the sports centre through the day and in the evenings? It's just, the two don't like for like. We're not having like for like here. Finally, I'm ending now. I'm ending. The light's on. I'm just finishing. Finally, please do support this amendment. Do go back to the drawing board. I would love to see the committee again to be looking at this again, looking at the options, and moving on to keep the Battersea Sports Centre and the Winstanley regeneration. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor O'Brien.
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask one question?
No, you're out of order. Councillor O'Brien.
If at the end you want to ask a question, please do. I'd like to start by saying how amused I was by the accusation of vanity projects. Given that half the tower blocks in my ward are named after former Labour politicians, it really beggars belief. I really want to talk about three things. I mean, the housing aspect has been already well rehearsed. I want to talk about our attitude to sports. I also want to talk about sustainability, picking up some of the points on Keys House. And I want to talk about the future and quality. I firstly just want to clarify two things, because there is a lot that needs clarifying. I think the first, picking up a comment of Councillor Speck, and I do respect her commitments to her ward, it's this idea, and it came out as well at the OSC, that there are sort of various sides to the community, and that we might be taking away from one side. And I think that sort of undermines the entire purpose of our regeneration proposal. As an SNP councillor, and I'm sure with the rest of my colleagues, one of the things that's most exciting about our proposals is it's to break down barriers, particularly the barrier of the artificial barrier of the York Road. And right at the centre of that, it'll be right at the centre of that the new sports facilities, the new leisure centre will be located. Indeed, it's probably closer to some of the residents on the eastern side of West Latchmere than the sports centre is at the present. The other point that I just want to clarify is this suggestion that current users won't travel distances to the reprovision, that they just won't be prepared to. That just isn't the case. Keys House, as many of you will know, was previously located at Petwood Street. It is now all the way over near Yelverton Street. They were told, your members won't follow over then, for a number of reasons, including gang membership, just the distance, affordability. That has proved not to be the case at all. Indeed, people are coming from Fulham and Chelsea, even Croydon, to Keys House, because if you provide high-quality facilities, they will travel. I think I would echo, to be absolutely clear, Councillor Caddy's comments, that no one wants to close the sports centre, and indeed, no one wants to close the sport. But the delegation at the OSE indeed made a very passionate and articulate case for those who work, volunteer and participate at the centre. And we would encourage, as we know they already are, the officers to really find a home for these clubs and these people at the other sites, because it is the people themselves rather than the buildings that really keep this sense of community going. However, as already been covered tonight, and I won't dwell on it, we really feel we have a duty to families here that will otherwise be decanted far from their homes, far from their support networks. And Councillor Speck said this is not about buildings and houses. She's absolutely right. It's about families and homes, and that's why we're taking the measures that we are. We are a pro-sport council, and I want to really emphasise that in my time this evening. There will be £3.5 million invested in 6 of our leisure centres under the new leisure centre management contract. There's a £750,000 scheme at Tooting Bet Lido. That's before you look at the schemes to encourage sport, picking up the other point. You will remember the success of Wandsworth at the Youth Games, and of course we have the new leisure centre itself. So we are a pro-sports council. Secondly, sustainability, and to pick up on some of the points made, in particular those of Councillor Efson, we have to, I think, to put tonight's discussion of BSE in context. Of course, BSE itself started life as a youth centre. So the accusation that Keys House is a youth centre doesn't really stack up. In a way, it's a modern equivalent. Councillor Efson made the point about money going into it. Indeed, money has gone into it, generated by Keys House through their own innovation, through their own charity, not through the taxpayers. And that's why it's a really great example of a kind of sustainable model for the future. In terms of schools, the same is true. The Phoenix Judo Club, which is a very successful club here in Wandsworth, is actually located at Ernest Bevan School. Where was it before? Battersea Sports Centre. Why did it move to the school? Because there were better facilities there. So I think some of these points are really both wide of the mark and not supported by evidence in our own borough. We can't look at these facilities in neat silos and just discount them because they have another purpose. When there is such huge pressure on finances and space for housing, we have to look at doing things in a better and different way, which is what we, the Conservative group in Wandsworth, are all about. That's why in Queenstown, in the new Covent Garden Market, you're seeing proposals for split-level artificial pitch. That's why we're looking at new ways to ensure that Tooting Bet athletics track can continue in the long term. And it's also about looking at things on a local level and how we can help. I looked before we came here tonight at the Community Health Environment Scan Survey, which was looking at participation amongst the young in Wandsworth, and two things particularly struck out for me.
Can you now draw your remarks to a close, please?
Not a problem at all. The key point that I'm looking to make tonight is that we in Wandsworth here are very much in favour of sport. We're looking for a sustainable way to support that for the future, and we're looking at providing high-quality sporting facilities. We think we can do that at the same time as putting forward what is an incredibly exciting regeneration project for housing in this borough, and I would urge you to reject the amendment. Many thanks.
Councillor Melton. Would you not? Would you? Would? Councillor Cook, and you have requested to speak for up to 10 minutes, perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think we can all feel the frustration and disarray amongst the party opposite this evening. On the hoof, boy, it's changing during the debate. But that's understandable. They have got themselves into a little bit of a mess over this, thrashing about for a coherent line. Having supported the Winstanley York Road regeneration, quite right, they've now found that this actually means that they have got to follow up and support some actions that back up those words. And that, of course, isn't their style. And the first bit of pressure, they've split. They've split from us, and they've split within themselves. And we've seen that this evening. Just about every single one of those speeches was inconsistent with what preceded and what followed it. We've heard a tremendous amount of spurious comment from the opposition in recent weeks. The one overall theme just strikes me above all, and that is a complete lack of any vision. It's all short-term opportunism, populism, and playing to the gallery, quite literally this evening. They seem only to, as the leader said earlier, look backwards, to resist change and to, at all costs, maintain the status quo and just ignore any prospect of improvement. All of this is a sad echo of the Tooting Track saga, which we had a council meeting before Christmas. This scant regard for the facts and an even less regard for how it all plays out for the residents affected in terms of the concerns that it creates. But there are much bigger issues here. I mean, we've touched on it this evening in really some depth. That this has to be seen in the context of the larger regeneration of the Winstanley area. Of course, the last Labour government squandered billions in its efforts to achieve neighbourhood renewal and regeneration to virtually no effect, whereas in Wandsworth we're embarking on large-scale regeneration on our own initiative, and we've already heard this evening about the energetic new thinking about facing the housing challenges facing London, and we are doing as well as any London borough. So we won't take the nonsense from the party opposite, and Councillor Hogg in particular. So, given everything we're doing, I can appreciate this is intensely uncomfortable for the Labour Party. They really are, as I said, playing with the lives of those people who will be affected. We know that there is broad, solid support for the regeneration plans. Of course, some people have doubts, and it's not 100%. It never will be. But really, some of the things that the Labour Party have been pouring forth in recent weeks are quite extraordinary, as they've attempted to sort of exploit any uncertainties as they see it. I mean, Councillor Cooper really does take first prize with her criticism of the wider scheme being a vanity project. I mean, that really should be etched on a wall here somewhere. And incredibly, at OSC, she opposed the funding to the tune of £1.3 million, the creation of a new pitch at Falcon Park. And she helpfully explained to us that she didn't think it could be afforded. Well, I disagree with that. I think it's a very high priority, and that's why we're going to do it. I'm grateful to Councillor Efson for making the case and using the example of Keys House, making the case for investing in facilities, and how something which was not as good as it could have been, the previous Keys House, which I knew well, is now fantastic. One of the best in the UK. I've heard some people say it's the best of its kind in Europe, and of course it's moved. Councillor Belton clearly isn't happy, and he's looking for all sorts of people to blame. This one ought to be simple for him. Closure of Sports Centre ought to be an easy Labour Party cause, and it's interesting to sort of see the shifting of position this evening. I'm not going to get into the when people were told what, because it's all process, and it's really not the substantive. It's not the substantive issue. In fact, I will get into it. The complaint about new, they the homes will be new in the sense that they will not previously have existed. I think that is easy to understand. Councillor Speck spoke at the OSC, and she followed up this evening with a question, which unfortunately we didn't get to. It's the next on the list, but it's very, very interesting. It's worth dwelling on because she cites the worse health, the less good health indicators of Latchmere Ward, and in particular the lower life expectancy, and at OSC was making the case that the residents are being used as scapegoats, which is a curious phrase. But it really is worth dwelling on this because it illustrates perfectly the muddled mindset of the Labour Party. Those wards in the borough with the best health outcomes, curiously, often have very sparse sports facilities. My own, Northcote, several in Putney are all good examples. I have a list of them here. If the health of the residents of Latchmere was simply down to the facilities they have, they would be amongst the fittest in the borough. It is a much more complicated picture than Councillor Speck will allow. And it really, I think, it just underlines the level of misunderstanding that the ward councillors are capable of, that they are harbouring so fundamental a misunderstanding, that the health indicators are purely a reflection of sporting facilities. It is quite clearly not the case. Moving on, Will Martindale is worth a mention. He's been very busy. He obviously couldn't help himself. He's on a slightly different timescale, I suppose, to the rest of us. He organised a kickabout, which I thought was very, it was announced in this letter, which I thought was very apt, because there can rarely have been a better example of a politician using an issue of a political football in the way that he has. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at his what he's been saying. He says it isn't a crucial part of the Winstanley York Road regeneration. Well, he's wrong there. It clearly is. He says that the facilities won't be. He says the facilities won't be re-provided. As we've heard in great detail this evening, they will be re-provided, and they'll be better, and there'll be more of them. So he's wrong there. He says Battersea Park will be too expensive. Well, he's not comparing like with like, but he's wrong there. There's all sorts of provision, a lot of it free, and I can make very clear this evening, so that we can avoid any Khan-esque campaign and repeat of the nonsense we had around the tooting track. I can make clear that the charging regime at the new Falcon Park facility will be on the same basis as the current Battersea Sports Centre. So no change there. No worries. This letter, it really is quite extraordinary from Will Martindale. I stopped after a while picking out the inaccuracies, and I thought it would be a lot quicker if I tried to find the facts. And I think they've got the postcode right at the bottom, and that's about it. I did just want to reiterate Councillor Dawson's. I just wanted to reiterate Councillor Dawson's mention of the disgraceful misrepresentation of the Kingham report. It's very, very clear what the Kingham report said. What the report says about sports facilities is clearly in the context of dealing with gangs, and this council has a superb record since that report of addressing that issue. And it really is shameful, absolutely shameful, that the party opposite should try to say anything else. No, thank you. No, thank you, Councillor Belton. No, thank you. Of course, change is very difficult. I well recall a conversation with a lady in Latchmere who is in her late 80s and moved in to the current estate in 1961. And of course, she doesn't want to move. I can entirely understand that. It's that people dimension, which several colleagues have mentioned, hugely important. And of course, a sports centre is about people. Sports is about people. We understand that. I don't think we need reminding. So I think tonight's decision, should we make it, it's very clear that officers will be working extremely hard to work with all of the users to make sure they get the best possible future arrangements. And it's precisely because we're ambitious for change, unlike the party opposite, that we're facing this difficult decision. We can't just maintain the status quo. So we have a situation where we have our fantastic record on sports, something we're determined to build on, and incredibly, the Labour Party now finds itself standing in the way of 90 low-rent homes, standing in the way of new improved sports facilities, and standing in the way of an enormously positive estate regeneration. It's an extraordinary position for them to find themselves in. They obviously can't see beyond the end of their political noses, and it, I think, is very, very clear that we should defeat the amendment this evening.
Councillor, the matter now before the Council is the reference up amendment proposed by Councillor Osborne and seconded by Councillor Speck, as set out on page 97 of the agenda concerning the Battersea Sports Centre. So please indicate by show of hands those for the amendment. And those against the amendment. So the amendment
is lost 1634.
The amendment is therefore lost 16 to 34.
Is the paragraph noted?
And the paragraph should be noted. We move to the... Sorry.
Do you want to take the vote? Do you want to note the paragraph with the same numbers?
Do we take the paragraph, same numbers? Other way around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's 34 in that case.